the southwest of the UK. So they produce sort of flowers and foliage for your garden or for your home. And the kinds of tasks that they're doing are things like grading and collation. So that's inspecting plants to see that they're healthy. One of the key things they do is produce these plant trays, which they send to retailers. You can see some here on the video. And basically, they want to have a consistent and uniform quality of the crop. So they might do things like disposing of unhealthy plants, replacing them with high quality plants, and so on and so forth. Right. And this is really totally manual. I mean, actually, a huge number of businesses in the UK are small and medium. They're not able to invest in large traditional automation solutions. So I think, in the UK, we really feel this problem of the labour shortage that was mentioned earlier. So as roboticists, we're kind of interested in the possibility of replacing some of this human manual labour with robotic systems. And my group is particularly interested in collaborative robots and learning from demonstration. So the idea is that instead of having people or having sort of large automatic machinery, we might try to have adaptive robots that we can program, or rather growers can program, in order to solve some of the automation challenges that they have in their production sites. So learning from demonstration is probably a concept familiar with most people who are in the robotics community, but in case, just in case not, or if this case there's people that haven't heard of it. So the idea is essentially that we take demonstrations from people, we record data about their behavior. So this can be things like muscle activity or performance metrics or whatever. From that data, we use machine learning to build up models. And from these models, we derive controllers for robots. And then the robot should try to reproduce the tasks that we've shown them. And if we close the loop, then the robot will maybe go and interact back with the humans to maybe ask for more demonstrations if it hasn't learned very well, or just seek general feedback. So our sort of recent particular interest has actually been in this part of the loop. That is, the role of the humans, the human teachers. And we're particularly interested in addressing this question of, how can we make it sort of easy to give good demonstrations in a learning from demonstration framework. So this, I think, is particularly important in the horticulture sector, because if you're working with growers, general nursery workers, the actual probable end users of these kind of robotic systems, we can't necessarily rely on their knowledge of engineering or advanced machine learning technologies. So if we were trying to teach a robot to do this plant disposal task, for example, and we've got sort of 100 plants in a seed tray, well, we're not going to teach the robot every single plant. We rather select a few sort of key samples and let the robot learn from them and generalize, right? So as machine learners or roboticists, we know that, but I would say, generally speaking, technical growers don't really know or understand this concept of generalization in learning in these kinds of systems. So we've, over the last few years, say last couple of years, we've been looking at the interaction between the teacher and the learner. And we're kind of following this model where we've got a teacher who's providing data, and we've got our learner who's from that data deriving a policy. And from the policy or the controller, the learner is able to execute or try to reproduce the desired task. Okay. And this part here is actually the key part which we're able to use to influence our teachers, right? So the teachers may get feedback, they may see what the robot is doing, and from that interpret, what the robot is understanding about the task, and use that interpretation to generate their next set of data. So really what we're interested in is how, or in what way should the robot feed back to its human teacher by showing what it's learned. So we've done various experiments in this, and I'm going to flag one particular one, which is around that plant disposal task that I've kind of used as my running example. So in this experiment, we ran some trials with a large number of horticultural nursery workers. So they were working at a grower site. And we were looking at, well, can they teach a robot that plant disposal task? under different feedback domains. Okay, so we compared cases such as, well, our control case was no feedback, so the robot just simply wouldn't replay, it would just passively absorb data from the teachers. With cases such as replay feedback, where we replay what you were just shown, which seems kind of intuitive. Batch feedback, so selecting a few key points. So these are expert selected key points that the robot would demonstrate its picking behavior. Or selected feedback, so allowing the teacher to point out places where the robot should pick next. So the teacher might teach this plant and then say, okay, so from what you've learned there, what would you do if you picked this plant over here? Okay. Now, the really interesting thing from this sort of experiment was that when you look at the efficiency of teaching, comparing these different feedback domains, only one of them had a statistically significant improvement in teaching efficiency with the teachers, and that was the expert selected batch feedback. So that's, you know, choosing these key points and getting the robot to do a replay every time. So people were pretty bad at selecting their own feedback, and replay feedback just didn't give you any information about generalization. So the kind of key learning here is that we can actually influence teacher behavior. So in the batch feedback case, we can see an improvement in our teaching efficiency. But we have to be careful about how we design that feedback. Okay, so just you know, some of the cases which we thought might be promising, such as the selected feedback, just weren't effective compared to no feedback at all. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting finding, and it tells us that actually there's quite a lot to do in terms of designing that interaction between a learning robot and an ordinary person who's trying to teach it. So now I've, you know, just because I've got very short time, I'm just going to skip across to a quite different area. So we're interested also in sort of some complex grasping skills, and I thought this might be interesting to this workshop. So one of the companies that we work with process large volumes of fresh herbs, such as basil, as you can see in the picture here. And this is a hugely demanding area in terms of labor cost. So it's something like 50% of their operating cost is just the low-skilled labor here. It's dull, repetitive, horrible work in a cold refrigerated pack house. So it's actually quite hard to get people to work in this area. And it's an extremely challenging grasping problem. So basil, for example, bruises very, very easily. So I'm just going to give you a flavor of some of the things that we're exploring in this domain. So one particular thing that we're interested in is how do we get picking of a consistent amount from, let's say, a bale of herbs. Okay, so they, for example, ship in a crate of, let's say, flat leaf parsley, and what they want to do is process it so you've got nice sort of 15-gram bunches of herbs, which you send off to a retailer and you buy it in your supermarket. Now, parsley is horrible for picking up. Here you can see this parallel gripper. The gripper ends there, and if you just go in with a naive grip, you pull out almost all of the parsley in one go. So one of the approaches that we have been exploring is whether we can control the parsley pile or the salad pile in order to try to mitigate some of these uncertainties. So here, this is an example where we're trying to basically, we've adopted this spread and pick approach to try to start our pick by doing like a detangling operation. So we essentially go in, we find a good place for separating out the herbs, and then we do our pick. Okay, and this, I mean, I'm not going to go into all the technical details of how it works. You can sort of read it up in a recent IROS paper. But this actually allowed us to reduce our variation in picking weight, so the picked weight, by roughly 56%. So just that simple act of spreading out the herbs during your pick movement makes quite a significant change in terms of your consistency. So I'm sorry that was a very quick and short sort of whistle-stop tour through a lot of different concepts, but I'm just going to sort of quickly summarize. So in my view, there's quite a lot of low-hanging fruit in automation in the sector, pun fully intended. But I think that putting power in the hands of the growers will be key to both success and adoption. Okay, I think growers really know what they want automated and what they don't want. So really, we need to work together with them. And I think, you know, on the sort of technical side, I think programming by demonstration has got lots of advances in algorithms recently. I would like to see more consideration of their usability from an ordinary person perspective. So I think I've pretty much managed to keep exactly within the 10 minutes. So hopefully, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your talk and for showing the latest advancements that you were working on within your group. And now, any question to Dr. Matthew? Amir?
Lorenzo can go first. Go ahead, Lorenzo, please.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. I was particularly interested in the approach to pick the salad. Is it mainly based on vision? What is the main if you can say just a couple of more words about the strategy?
Yeah, so we've actually abused the graspability index. So that's you know, based on depth camera information essentially, and so graspability index usually tries to find the least collision point for doing some picking. What we're doing is we're trying to find the highest collision point, which is roughly speaking the place where you're going to get the most tangling. So those are good places for doing your spreading to do detangling information.
And then you check every time you do it, like you do it once and then check again and do it another time until a certain level of detanglement, or?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, there's several variations in the kind of headline figure that I gave you. It was literally, I think, just one spread and pick, choosing the optimal orientation and pick point. But absolutely, you could repeat it several times to optimize that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Amir?
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew. Very interesting talk. Do you think that the current end effector that we have is quite sophisticated enough for agri-food manipulation, or what is the challenge in terms of the hardware that you face when you want to robotize some of the tasks in agri-food domain?
I guess challenge number one is cost. I think that most growers are not going to invest in a complex multi-degree of freedom hand. You may have seen in one of the videos, we've got this kind of humanoid hand, but actually we ended up using it more or less as just a parallel picker. I think that's mainly because at the moment, the case hasn't been made for complex manipulations that, you know, to make it commercially viable. Obviously, in the end, you know, people's hands are the best pickers. So, you know, we should go towards that, I think. But at the moment, we're a long way from it.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you. Ming Xuan?
Okay, thank you. A very interesting talk. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I think I have a question regarding the vision system. So what kind of vision camera you can use? I didn't figure out very clear.
I would
because it looks like you're picking the herbs, and also it looks like very accurate. So I'm wondering, like, what is a camera?
Yeah. I don't have the details of the particular camera off the top of my head, but we're using essentially a little compact depth camera.
Like rear sense, or?
I would have to look up the exact thing. You can see a picture of it in the slide here. I think it's just a little compact structured light camera. It may not be. I mean, we don't work on vision heavily, so we were just using something out of the box.
I see. I will check the paper. Yeah.
Yeah, the details will be there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I may have a question, if possible. So I saw during one of the slides, either in this one, either in the full talk, that you relied on the point of collision free in order to know the orientation of disentangling the grip or opening the gripper in order to disentangle the herbs.
Yeah.
So do you think that using a soft adaptable gripper instead of rigid one like this will it free the need to search for the collision-free point in order to know the orientation of the gripper?
So obviously I mean I quite like the soft gripper idea, but I wonder whether or how suitable it is for things like a bunch of parsley. So one of the things that we sort of struggle a little bit with is getting the gripper to actually penetrate into the batch of herbs. And I mean, I'm sure you could cleverly design a soft gripper to be rigid enough that it would get in there, but I don't think you don't enjoy the benefits of the conformability, let's say around an apple, that you do around parsley or basil or something like that. So I guess I will sit on the fence a little bit there, but I'm not sure that it's suitable for this kind of picking.
So by obstacle, you mean even if there is a surface or table below the herb?
So essentially, to be able to pick up, let's say, 15 grams of a herb, right, from a crate of herbs, you need your fingers to penetrate in,
yes,
somewhat into the pile of herbs in order to sort of do that pick operation. Now, even with the rigid parallel gripper that we've been working with, we have some difficulties there, because when you press the gripper in, it tends to compact the pile of herbs rather than penetrate in through between the strands to be able to lift. And my feeling with, let's say, a pneumatic, these kind of balloon type hands, is that you might have an even worse problem there because they don't have that rigidity. But that may just be my prejudice, because we don't design those types of grippers. So yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much. If no one has, I think we are running more of the time, so we will switch to the next speaker. Thank you for your talk. Professor Peter Abil, if he is with us. He is not, seems.
I can check if he's in the audiences, and if not, we can move to the next speaker until Peter gets here.
Yeah, so the next is Dr. Robert Katkisman, and I think also he didn't join yet.
Okay, I can get in touch with Peter Abil and also Robert. Tommaso, can you just communicate with Robert?
Yeah, I can.
And yeah, the next is Professor Salah Sukkarieh, but I think he will join on his time because he is not yet in the chat. So the next.
Saria, you are on mute.
Yeah. So there are 3 speakers in the first session that they didn't join us yet. Therefore, meanwhile, waiting for them to join, maybe we can switch to session 2 on multimodal. Tommaso, are you in a good connection?
Yeah. It seems that I have a connection good enough. Yeah, if you want to start session 2, we can. Can you hear me?
On mute.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why.
Yeah, can you please go ahead, and in the meantime, Saria, you get in touch with the speakers who didn't join yet, and we continue with the second session. Tommaso, go ahead, please.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Tommaso Parti. I'm a PhD student at the University of Birmingham, and I will be chairing this early session 2, which is titled Multimodal Perception for Dexterous End Effectors. We will have 4 speakers in this session. We will have Dr. Manoj Karki, Dr. Fei Chen, Dr. Maximo Roa, and Dr. Lorenzo Iamone. Just as a reminder, at the end of each session, we will have a bit of time. If you want to pose questions, use the Slido website or the chart itself, and we will do those questions at the end of each talk. Another very small thing is that for moderating, at the end of every talk, at 3 minutes before the end and 1 minute before the end, for the speakers, we will show a little piece of paper with the minutes they are left, so that someone can pace itself in the talk. Okay, after saying that, the first speaker up would be Dr. Manoj Karki. Okay. Hello. Okay.
Greetings, everybody.
Hello. If you could start presenting, I will give you a brief introduction. Dr. Manoj Karki is an associate professor in the Biological System Engineering Department at Washington State University. He leads a strong research program in the area of sensing, machine vision, and agricultural robotics in the WSU Center of Precision and Automated Agriculture System. And his talk today would be discussing the challenges for robotic fruit harvesting, targeted shake and catch harvesting, and fruit tree and berry prune bush pruning. And he will address potential future directions in research and development for agricultural robotics. The title is AI, Machine Vision and Robotics for Fruit Harvesting and Fruit Tree Pruning. So please.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for that nice introduction. Again, my name is Manoj Karki from Washington State University. However, I'm talking from a small city in Colombia, right next to Bogota today, from a hotel room. So if something goes bad, that's not me. So excuse me for that. Also, my longer presentation should be available somewhere in the web, where most of the content that was described in the introduction are included. Today's lecture will be relatively shorter. So let me share my screen.
Manoj, we can see your screen. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So today we'll be talking briefly about AI machine vision systems and robotics, particularly when it is applied to robotic picking and robotic pruning of fruit crops such as apples and cherries. Why automation in orchard operations? Many of you already know about it. We also heard from previous speaker about the needs, but quickly, for example, when it is picking apples and pruning apple trees, it's really difficult and laborious and even dangerous job out there in orchards. For example, on our left picture, we see a worker climbing up and down the ladder with a bag full of apples in the front, and while doing so, they are also picking apples. So it's a repetitive job, causing different kinds of issues with the hands and arm and shoulder, but also a lot of falls and other risks. Similarly, very cold conditions here in the pruning. During pruning operation, as you can see in the lower right picture, again, these are really difficult and sometimes even dangerous tasks we would like to automate. There has been long research and development in this area, but only limited commercial success so far. There are a few different challenges that we've faced in the past to make them commercially viable. Some of the limitations that I'm listing here, some of the major ones, includes speed, accuracy, and robustness, or their lack of those features. Sometimes it also cause produce and plant damage, and cost and lack of adoption becomes another big issue because agriculture, as we know, operates in a thin margin, and developing solutions, robotic automated solutions that are really cheap or affordable and allow commercial viability and economic viability is a challenge. So WCCPAS, Center for Precision and Automated Agricultural Systems program, particularly the program I lead at the center on fruit harvesting and pruning, includes a couple of research projects, as I'm going to explain in the next couple of slides. First, let me talk about automated cherry harvesting. We have worked in this project for quite some time now. We started with a mechanical harvesting prototype developed by a USDA scientist out in West Virginia about 20 years ago when this machine was developed and tested. And then we improved this machine for a sacking mechanism, catching mechanism, so that it becomes more efficient and effective. But at the same time, we worked on machine vision system using different conventional as well as newer algorithms to use foliage and fruit and other clues available in this image collected both in the day and nighttime conditions to detect where these branches could be and estimate their trajectories using a simple second or third order polynomial, and that would be then used to automatically reach those branches and grab them and check them to remove cherries. Another project that I have led over the past 5, 6, 7 years is the robotic apple harvesting. In this project, we first used different kinds of sensors, force and torque sensors in different fingers to understand how much force is involved in our fingers when experienced workers are picking apples, what kind of motion is involved, and then using those pieces of information to design different kinds of robotic hands. In addition to that, we have used both color and 3D images or 3D imaging techniques to detect and look at apples, and then integrated everything together into a robotic system that has evolved over time and has been tested in different conditions, both in the laboratory as well as in the field. Here is a quick snapshot of the machine vision system that has been developed and used in these robotic systems. We have depth images and color images, and they have been merged together into this kind of image kind of processing system, so that we can again detect where the apples are, and then also look at them in 3D coordinates. In addition to simple detection of apples and localization of apples, we've also analyzed the entire canopy to detect all kinds of objects that are there in the canopy systems in tree canopies, including apples and their calyxes and their orientations. In addition to those, branches, leaves, trellis wires, and trunks, so that we can not only detect apples, but also detect their spatial and topological relationship with these other objects, so that we can find a safe and efficient direction of approach to harvest those apples. So, for example, we can see on our lower right corner those red arrows around the yellow circle indicating that that's the direction we need to approach that apple, so that we can pick it safely without interfering with the branch that is right next to that apple. In addition, we have also devised a simple intuitive approach that is called hierarchical machine vision. Here, simply what it does is that we take an image, detect the most visible apples like this, and pick them, and then all of a sudden there will be some more apples visible because those in the front have been just picked. And then we repeat this process of taking images and finding out more apples, and then pick them, and repeat this process until all the visible and accessible apples are picked. Here is a quick video demonstrating the evolution of different prototypes in my lab on our left. On our right is the prototype we developed that was developed in collaboration with FF Robotics, the company out of Israel. And this full-scale machine was tested both in Washington and Israel in the last couple of years. This machine shows a really great promise for commercial apple harvesting, and we're hoping, the company is hoping that this could be commercialized in the recent future. In terms of apple and cherry tree pruning, we have developed a machine vision system using experts' knowledge, such as the experts such as growers, horticulturists, and also observation of professional pruners. In addition to that, we have also collected before pruning, after pruning images, and we have analyzed those images to find the difference and potentially find the strategies that have been used in pruning apple trees and cherry trees. And also, we have developed some strategies to simplify the pruning process and create simpler pruning rules that could be implemented by the decision support system and could be then implemented by the robotic system to prune the selected branches from different kinds of tree fruit canopies. Here is a kind of a system integration for robotic pruning. On our top right corner, we see camera. I think this is a tracking camera from RealSense. We have used RealSense cameras to detect, to take images and track our robotic system and process those images to detect branches and trunks and estimate their geometric characteristics. And then we have used a UR5, as you can see, a commercially available robotic arm to implement the overall robotic pruning system. Here is a quick video from the laboratory analysis of the robotic pruning system that we have developed. This machine has been slowed down for the safety reason in the lab. As we can see in the previous image, previous slide, we have taken this system out in the field and we have evaluated in the field environment once in the last couple of months. However, we have not achieved the desired level of performance as we would like to, and we're continuing to further advance and evaluate this system in the field conditions. Finally, last 1 minute or so here, just a few challenges and the future direction that I believe in this specific area that we're taking, so that our robotic systems become machine vision systems and robotic systems become much more reliable, robust, and commercially viable. Some of the major challenges include achieving high harvesting efficiency when it is a harvesting system. As you can see here, modern orchards with those robotic systems, even in the modern orchards, we are only picking about 65–70% of the apples. It is not even that realistic for conventional orchards. Same is true for pruning. If we are dealing with some of the modern apple or cherry orchards, such as what we call UFO cherries, which stands for upright fruiting offshoot, we might be able to achieve quite high pruning efficiency. But if we are dealing with some of the conventional orchards with complex architectures and pruning rules not well defined, it is very difficult to achieve the desired level of efficiency. In addition to that, we are always limited by speed, complexity, and cost. I mentioned that earlier as well. Our effort has been and will have to be developing simpler and low-cost solutions so that farmers could adopt and afford them. And fruit quality, for example, when it is peaking, and certainly consistency in pruning and other aspects associated with the end result of these robotic operations is a big challenge, and we continue to advance in that direction as well. And human-machine collaboration becomes one of the tools, I believe, that will be helpful in achieving desired performance, both in terms of the speed, the accuracy, the efficiency, and so on. In recent years, we're looking at soft robotics, both at hand and manipulation level, as well as we're continuing to explore the capabilities of transdisciplinary systems approaches, including experts from horticulture, crop science, computer science, and other areas, and certainly agricultural engineering as the discipline I represent, so that we can develop more robust solutions. With that, thank you very much, everybody. I don't know if there's time for questions and answers, but I'd be happy to answer them now or later with my email there, manas.karki@wsu.edu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaki, for the talk. It was very interesting. I guess we have a couple of minutes for questions. So if there are some questions, please raise your hand. We have. Yeah, sure.
Is that right? Hi, thanks for the presentation. Very interesting. Given your experience in the field, like literally, and the fact that you mentioned you did human studies to analyze the forces applied with the fingers on the fruits, I was wondering if during the manual picking, whether the pickers they will assess the quality of the fruit by touching, and whether you have measured that like in terms of exploratory movements or the amount of force or any information in that sense.
Well, thank you very much, Lorenzo, are you, for your good question. In most of the modern apple orchards, fruit are harvested in 1 or 2 cycles. It's not like a really continuous process. They're using modern horticulture and crop varieties. They are able to develop the systems where the fruit are matured almost at the same time. So when they have to be harvested is the decision supervisors and experienced farmers make. And once it is decided, workers are provided a few guidelines just to pick maybe half of the fruit that are visually assessed, not with touching, or or pick everything that is viable for commercial marketing. So to answer your question briefly, I don't think they use touch as a quality measure. They certainly use visual properties, color, shape, size, as the quality parameters to make decision in terms of which one to pick. But once they reach and pick it, they don't really bother about the feel and other quality parameters. And certainly in my robotic system, I have not considered that property at all. And I'm not sure if that is that much kind of valuable for the overall apple industry anyway, based on what I just mentioned and discussed earlier.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you again. I think we are running a little bit late, so Amir, do you want to have another questions? Otherwise, we can take this offline as we are.
If you are out of time, there is another question, and I prefer just to be on time. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you again, Dr. Kaki. And so the next speaker, I guess I hand over to Saria because we are going back to session 1. And yeah.
Thank you, Tommaso. So first I will ask if Professor Robert is here, because as I understood, he is still on the call.
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Okay, hi, thank you for joining us. And yeah, I'm sorry for the delay and for switching between sessions. So meanwhile, I will invite you to share your screen, to start sharing your screen for your 10 minutes talk. And 3 minutes and 1 minute before your talk, we will show you the remaining time so we can keep the time. So for Prof. Robert, it's not 10 minutes, it's a 20 minutes talk. Prof. Robert Katzman, excuse me for the pronunciation. He is an assistant professor of robotics at ETH Zurich, where he founded the Soft Robotics Lab. Prof. Robert's work activities focused on developing soft robots whose compliant properties resemble living organisms and advances modeling, control, and learning techniques tailored to the needs of soft robots. Prof. Robert worked also on robotic manipulation technologies at Amazon Robotics and as CTO at Dexai Robotics Company. So I will leave now the floor to you, Prof. Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, Saria. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for making this workshop happening. Can you see my slides fine?
Yes, that's
Perfect.
fine.
Excellent. And I guess you can hear me. So with this, thank you. I will go ahead and first to give you an understanding here on this slide, you can see a little bit the structure of today's presentation. I basically will